Good morning. Hello to another Kerfuffle showcase. Delighted today to have the lovely Mal McCallion. Hello there from Growtion.
Lovely to be here, my friend. How are you?
You are sporting your own particular brand of complimentary merch, I must say. I'm very impressed.
That's very true, actually, yes. I haven't got a baseball cap, but I do actually have a face mask. It's my latest acquisition. So, but I didn't think it was going to be right for this conversation.
That's fine. I mean, I would if you is that you somehow saying I'm something like a super spreader or something like that. Even
all the way from Manchester.
Even digitally, you feel you have to wear a mask with me. That's not very nice, is it?
I don't know what the rules are anymore. I'm confused.
No. We'll wait for Caesar Bojo to do that later on, or whatever we're allowed to do. Okay, let's kick off. So today we've got a nice title here: generate growth against the odds. Look at you playing the under. The contender or whatever.
Yeah.
Mal, we'll talk about your background in a minute here, but just give us the briefest overview before we go into detail. What's Growtion? What problems is it solving, and who's it for?
Thank you. All right. So Growtion basically came out of my general kind of nerdiness. All right. So I am absolutely obsessed with the idea of why some businesses grow and some businesses don't. So I believed that there had to be some sort of process, formula, if you will, about which businesses go through the successful process and which ones go through the non-successful process. And as you know, I've been lucky enough to be part of some great growth stories in Zupa and Prime Location and others. And those kind of learnings along the way, and actually being kind of in on the ground when we started Prime Location, there was about 6 of us. I was deploying 11 at Zoopla. And you see these kind of steps that these businesses take as they build up towards being worth many millions and so on. And I kind of wanted to bring that into an accessible way for SMEs to get some of that, to get some information, because SMEs in general, who are obviously agents, who are suppliers, it's really hard. And to make the same mistakes as others are making, and to have those expensive blind alleys that you end up going down, and in general people do, because you don't always know what the kind of steps or where to look. So what I wanted to do was to kind of say, right, okay, let's get some format, some system in place that can guide people to think about how to grow their business. And that's where the kind of Growtion formula came from. It's 15 steps in 3 distinct disciplines. And then the idea was more than just kind of growth theory, it's execution. And that's why Growtion is Growtion. It's growth execution smashed together, because executing is much more important than sitting around chatting about it. And I will never claim to be the ideas guy, but I'm the guy that does stuff, and I get on with things. And that's what Growtion is about as well. It's not just the kind of sitting around having a nice chat and putting the world to rights. It's actually going out and doing it and executing on these various areas with the absolute focus on growing the business.
Because you and I have been lucky enough now, or cursed to have been in this game for so long now, that we've seen some truly interesting, good, could have been great businesses, but just for whatever reason they never made it. And literally, a lot of the time they allowed perfect to get in the way of better. They obviously overanalyze things. They just never put the foot forwards. Being brutally honest, they just never put the hard yards in, did they?
Exactly that, and that I think is the kind of one thing that I hope people get this conversation and get out working with us as well, is that this is building a business isn't easy, right? And there's that phrase that everybody uses, if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. It is phenomenally hard, and the majority of them fail within 5 years, and that's because in the end, unless you are really truly a believer in what you do, and something, the thing that we really drill hard into right at the start, the first one of these is about product concept, is why you're solving this problem. You have to really believe that that you are the person to do it, and you are going to build a business to do it, and that there is a problem, and that problem is understandable and is big enough. And it's only those, for me, it's only those businesses and those entrepreneurs that really, really, really believe it, that in the end will find a way to make it. Because when the hard times come, as I think we've all seen this year, it's the businesses that are a little bit more shaky. It's the kind of the founders who are a bit more like, do you know what, this is too hard. That's when things go. But yeah, one of the kind of core sort of foundation of everything for me is this belief that this needs to be fixed, and you're the person to fix it.
And so for those people under a rock that don't know you, but why do you feel that you're the person to be able to talk about this? Can you just give us again a bit of that background? Obviously, I know it very well, those companies, but just
because I keep telling you.
Give us your evolution story.
Yeah, sure. So I started out Fitz University a very, very long time ago, in '93. I went to work in financial services. Had some fun in there. In the end, became an account director there, working with people like HSBC, Barclays, and various financial service organisations. And then that business moved up to York, and I went with it and helped it to relocate. And then this was 2000. I was 27, and I didn't want to be in York in the end, and I wanted to be back in London. So I was speaking with some various recruitment businesses, and one just said, "Look, we've got this thing. Don't really know what it is." And this was in 2000, right? So this was the dawn of the internet, and just when people were starting to kind of get a hold of it. They said this thing is basically, that they want somebody to come and do some sales. It's got financial services in it, so we were selling mortgages. So I ended up speaking to what became Prime Location from pretty much nowhere, and started there in 2000 pre-launch. Left there just after we sold it in 2005 for 48 million, and that gave me the bug, basically, of startups, of business growth, of just seeing this, basically 6 people sitting around having a chat in an office to a 48 million pound business exit. And that was something that really kind of focused me and inspired me to really want to keep going, to keep growing, to get hold of businesses, or to help businesses to execute on growth. So then when I left Prime Location, I went to join the Australians. REA Group had come over to the UK to take over Property Finder, and I went and worked there with some great people, really inspirational guys. Ended up running their magazine business, London Property News, which we turned from a loss into a profit within 10 months, which was amazing and great fun. And then Zoopla came along in 2008 and asked me to come and help them get launched and get set up. So went and worked with Alex and those guys. Again, amazing business, amazing, inspirational people. Very, very fortunate. Worked for them for 3 years, and it was amazing.
What was Alex like to work for? I never had the pleasure of obviously working with him closely, but I've heard obviously a lot of secondhand stories that he really was a fairly unique character.
Oh, quite, and inspirational as being unique. So his focus, I remember, really early on, just kind of trying to get an understanding of what what we had 27 million properties all listed on the site, so you could go and find your own property. And the way his mind worked was around, essentially he thought of them as being barcoded. So he had this kind of unique ID for every single property in the UK. And what we were really focused on, one of our KPIs right at the start, was how many of them had attributes. So how much did we know about these individual properties? And he always said, look, we're a data business that just happens to be in property. And that was how he kind of saw the world. And there was a load of really, really kind of key things that I learned along the way, watching him at work up close. And just, really kind of inspirational, very dedicated, worked right through the night. And it was just a real kind of inspiration. Amazing.
Because I don't think realistically, I can't think of any contenders for somebody who's done more deals within this sector, is there, in terms of merger and acquisition activity? He was top of the tree, wasn't he?
Absolutely. And if you look back over his business past, then that was very much a key kind of factor as well. And he wasn't precious about it either. So when he created Love Film, which he then sold to Amazon just before he then set up Zoopla, he had brought together, I think he worked for a business, or he'd set up a business called Video Networks, and it was basically doing the same, but there were 4 of them. And he basically and they were all competing, and they kind of hated each other. And he just managed to do these deals with the other three. And one of the other ones was called Love Film, and he was like, "No, I don't. That's a much better name than my name. So let's call it Love Film. Let's all get together. Let's stop fighting and spending all this money and time doing that. Let's just get together and build this sector." And that was exactly what he replicated with Super as well, was this kind of idea that, look, and I think the big deal with Digital Property Group as it was, when he got Prime Location and Finder Property together, after he'd done all the Think Property, Hot Property, and Property Finder ones, was just kind of cutting through the emotion of it, and that was amazing for me. We'd gone toe to toe with Digital Property Group, but when we were growing, it was just, we were tiny. Then we acquired some businesses. Then we went toe to toe with Digital Property Group, and as you do when you're competing, you spend a lot of time and energy trying to hurt them from a business perspective, a commercial perspective. But then, when the opportunity arose to do that deal, he just managed to cut through it and just kind of say, look, we shouldn't be fighting each other. Rightmove's the big dog. So let's join forces and go after that, and he made it happen. But yeah, he's amazing from that as well.
I think make it happen is one of the things that I really respected, because ostensibly, he was meant to be the big, my big nemesis, being at Repeat, and obviously they owned all the, as you'll remember, the Property Software Group program. Yeah. So it was, we had the challenger brand, so it was easy to obviously have a pop from a distance. But the thing I did respect was, to get that level of business, is having been through just a few of them myself, what huge distraction of time, how difficult it is once egos and money's involved. It truly is massively impressive to have built that kind of, as you said, collection data empire that he managed to do there. So that's why I ask you the question, really. Anything you can do, anything you can glean from someone like that has got to be a benefit for obviously yourself and indeed the companies you work with going forwards.
Absolutely. And if there was a kind of real inspiration for this execution idea, then it was probably with Alex and with Zupa, which is, you can spend a lot of time on the money show, you can spend a lot of time on the emotion. Everybody feels stuff, right? But actually, at the end of the day, what's important? And what's important is business growth. So you look past all of these, all of this kind of fluff that gets in the way. You filter it all out, and you just go, right, if I need to solve this problem, okay, so I've built business to solve a problem. If I'm going to solve that problem, then I need to get to the other side of this really, really quickly and not get bogged down in all of this nonsense. So, and it was just so clear-eyed on what the prize was, and look, to build a business. And remember, Digital Property Group by that stage had been up against Rightmove for years and years and years and years. And we were coming up hard on their heels in terms of business growth within the space of like 2 years. And it was, just a real joy to be part of, and to, like I said, to kind of sit and watch and to learn from. Like you say, there are things that I hope I've learned, and also I can bring and do bring to the partners that we work with as well in Growtion, around just what's important. Don't get bogged down in this other stuff. It's business.
And what is important for, I suppose that changes with each company, doesn't it? But what's your first step when you're setting out to help businesses, and ultimately, how do you help those businesses, thrive?
Yeah. So initially, the one question that we have to get to the bottom of really, really quickly is the why question. And I know you and I have spoken before about Simon Sinek, and it start with why. This purpose that the business is here to solve, and that's what I try and find out first. And obviously, you kind of work with, you have a choice of who to work with, and generally I work with businesses that are really are doing something that's important, and have got somebody behind them that is really pushing for it, and believes that this is their calling in life. So the first question is two halves. It's why you and why this problem. Okay, so why you, why this problem? And then once you identify what your skills are, your history is, that makes you uniquely qualified to tackle this, and this problem is significant enough and has enough pain in it that people are going to suffer from it, want a solution to it, even if they don't quite know it yet, and also willing to pay money for it, obviously, because that's the end game. Then what you are is in a wonderful situation where you have the opportunity to be paid for doing something that is going to be of value to you and others. And that to me is the kind of the epicenter of SME business. You know, is actually people finding what their role in life is, and then executing on it and making it happen. And to be part of those stories is amazing. And that's my fun.
And are we talking here about just helping just estate agents? Are we talking about helping suppliers? Do you cater for both? Who's the target audience?
Yeah, so essentially it is SMEs. So the challenges that face suppliers and the challenges that face agents are the same at heart, which is, you know, how do you build a product or a service that is going to scale, that you're going to be able to grow from? How do you market it? And then how do you sell it? Okay, so those three things are kind of the things that we focus really hard on within the Growtion formula. Because nice as having a legal department, an HR department, accounts and all that sort of stuff is, unless you get these three things right, then you've got nothing to account for, you've got nothing to no people to HR, and you've got nobody to sue on the legal side. So yeah, it is an absolutely ruthless focus on product marketing, sales. You get these three things right and you will be growing and growing fast. And it is absolutely something that challenges any SME in any industry. And we don't just work in the property market, we do work elsewhere as well. But certainly, you know, this is where this is where I've grown up these last 20 odd years, and you know, it remains a passion of mine to kind of help people in the biggest transaction of their lives, you know, and where you live is so important as well, right?
Yeah.
That it is people making dreams come true and helping people with their lives, and every supplier and every agent that is doing it for the right reasons is doing some good out there. So that's why I do love it.
Okay. And what do you think, I mean, taking it back to today, Mal, you know, what do you think the biggest problem is facing the property market right at the moment?
Well, I mean, it's I mean, there's obviously the big kind of the pandemic is here, right? But I think almost in the micro term, it's about, I think over exuberance is probably going to be a problem right now, where people are so focused on doing stuff because there's so much stuff to do right here, right now, that big, massive elephant in the corner that is just kind of like, oh, by the way, you know, come the 31st of March next year, the stamp duty holiday is going to either disappear or change, probably. And, you know, we've got Brexit coming down the track, and you know, these are things, these are moments in time where, yes, you've got to execute on your skills. Yes, you've got to make sure that you're making the money when the sun is shining. But at the same time, now is absolutely the time where you need to be thinking about how the hell am I going to get my products set right for 2021? How am I going to get my marketing in place for 2021? And how am I going to get my sales together for 2021? Because it's coming fast. It's nearly October. It's October next week. And that's Q4, right? So, you know, we are, the 2020 has been a remarkable year for many reasons. But I just think that the problem that the property market and participants in are going to face in the next few months is going to be probably what every other sector is facing right now, and that there are existential crises coming for some, and those that are thinking now about that are the ones that are gonna thrive next year.
It's a good point, isn't it? There's not an agent in the land that wouldn't have snapped your hand off if you did take the market we've returned to back in June. But the problem therein lies, actually, it's been almost a bit of an artificial one compared to what else is happening out there in the wider market. And sooner or later, that you'd imagine that's got to, you know, take effect. Most people are the phrase making hay while the sun shines. You know, most people start talking about, obviously, you know, traditionally starts to slow down about October, November anyway. But the danger is if you don't put your work in because you are busy at the moment, then the start of 2021 is going to be tougher than it's ever been, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think for business owners right now, you know, they're the ones that can do this strategic thinking. Perhaps if they're honest with themselves, the fun stuff, they're going out and securing instructions, they selling the properties, and all that sort of stuff, you can get somebody else to do, and you should, because that's your job as an SME owner, entrepreneur, founder. is to think about what the strategic side of the business is, and that's what we spend a lot of time on. Is, you know, actually, yes, you can go and do all the fun stuff and get involved in all of the day-to-day, but right here, right now, that is what you can pay other people to do, because there's stuff to do, and it's relatively process oriented. What
It's
you
easy.
really need to do is some of the
They're falling into the easy busy mode, aren't they? There, where actually, yeah, you can fill your diary from dawn till dusk. You can even kid yourself, you know that phrase, not kid yourself, because it is dollar productive, because you're clearly earning. But is it dollar productive in terms of, you know, making the biggest effect to your business as a whole for the coming year? And that's where arguably it really isn't it? As long as you have got other people there that can do it, because frankly, there's going to be very few people in your business, arguably none, that can do what you can do on that strategic level.
Yeah, and that's it. That is exactly the point. Is that this business, in whatever shape it's going to end up in this time next year, all right? So let's posit that it's the 27th September 2021. What is your business going to look like this time next year? And the only person really that can focus in on that can visualize that and can take the steps necessary to get there is the business owner, is the founder, is the directors or the board of directors. So, you know, that's what they should be doing. And, you know, the kind of day-to-day, like you say, it's easy to get involved in that. It's easy to say that this is important, because, you know, making money is. But there are so many solutions out there, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of the kind of prop tech stuff and various others, you know, the kind of the viewers and things like that. You know, there are things that you can outsource that are cost effective. And you should right now be focusing on your business, not in your business, as our good friend Peter and I always talks about.
Just on that point then, is it possible, or how can agents best prepare for potential, you know, future crises, whether that's a pandemic or, you know, recession or anything else? It is part of the Growtion approach to really almost have that rainy day philosophy, you know, to hard code that into the business. How do you advise people to look at that?
Yeah, we're not just the bad news guys, but we also consider the bad news guys, right? Yeah, we need to help. If you're going to execute on growth, then you've got to execute on growth in the bad times as well as the good times, right? So, you know, there is no business in history that does not go through a recession or some negatives at some stage. So, yeah, for us, it's about the basics, about the fundamentals. Okay, it is always about what is your product set, all right? How have you crafted the value proposition that you are bringing to market? How is it then marketed? So what is your messaging to get it out there? And how consistent is that? How believable is that? How authentic is that? And then what is your sales process? Okay, and this is, you know, even in the property market, which is renowned for a plethora of salespeople, and pretty much, you know, almost that's what people don't get past. Sales process and the idea of kind of having a steady funnel of leads in the top and business coming out the bottom is so anathemic to so many people. You know, the excitement of sales and the kind of like, right, I'm just going to get these deals done is so prevalent that actually the systemizing of it is something that is really difficult for people. And to be fair, in any SME struggles with that. Then I find that, or we find that the clients in a lot of industries love the product side, love the creation of the thing that they're here to do, and that's their big calling. So that's done. And they love the marketing side because it's a bit creative and a bit, you know, cool, and they can kind of, you know, basically elaborate on their theories a lot. And it's the sales side, it's the kind of hard work, the grit that a lot of businesses don't systemize. And that's the stuff that's going to that's going to stand the test of time next year. You have to know where your leads are coming from, what you're doing with them, and how you're processing them, because there's going to be a lot less, I think, next year.
Okay, and so what should agents be doing now to ensure their service offering is maximised?
I am a big fan of the kind of the power of three, and the idea that actually having a triple offering is really good for you, and it's good for your customers too. So a lot of this kind of comes from, and may have read the book Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, which is an amazing book. I highly recommend people have a read or have a listen, because I'm a big fan of Audible as well. So and the idea behind that is that essentially people like choice. Okay, and they actually, if you present them with one option, which is, do you want Blog It and Co slip estate agents, and do you want us to sell your property? People will go either yes or no, and it depends if they've got what they perceive to be a better offer. Yeah, exactly that. And it is literally, you kind of, yes, you turn it on, turn it off. If you were to say to them, actually, do you want Blog It and Co's gold, silver, or bronze service? Then that's a different question, and actually positions you and your business and your offering in a different part of the market from everybody else who's just coming in and saying yes or no. And so I always, and we go very hard on this, have a kind of, the silver is your profit engine, right? So the middle profit, the middle product or the middle service offering is pretty much what you're doing right now. Okay, so just so think about that as being a silver, and then think about a bronze offering, which is cost less for the customer, but really explicitly shows that you won't do these other things in that.
It's essentially it's the light offering that some people refer to.
Exactly that. So yes, you can partake in our service if you want the light, but it is only light, and we will not go any further than doing these things for you. But you can have it, and if that's really what you want to do, then that's great. And then the other one is the kind of luxe, the super luxe sort of gold products. That is, there's some concierge type stuff in there. There's a real kind of, whether it's weekly kind of meetings, updates, whatever it is. But you think about your service, your product, and you are thinking, right, if I was to Super X this, what would that look like? How would I bring that into market? And what that does, just by having those three, you are framing the middle one. And just like people, when you go to a restaurant, you don't choose the cheapest and you don't choose the most expensive wine. You choose one down. And this is Kahneman's point, is that just by framing that middle offering, you will get far more people choosing it, because they feel that they've had options and they can see the value of that compared to the other two. So for me, I think that going into 2021, and all of you viewers, I would highly recommend you start to think about actually not just having this one-off product or service, thinking about what a kind of a triple service would look like. And it just gives people the option and permission to opt in, because they can see what the different value propositions are.
It's a whole education piece, though, isn't it, Mal? Because that point you said was the most important bit at the beginning, is explicitly saying what you're not getting. So often in those light packages, there is an element of self-service. It's really important that the person, the customer, understands what they are going to be having to do themselves, above and beyond what they would do with the more managed service in the middle, or certainly at the VIP end of the approach.
Yeah, and I think it's really honest, and I think people get that. So if I am looking to sell my property in March next year, I'm going to expect there to have been some changes along the way, because I look out my window and I know there's a pandemic roaming around. So I think that by telling them what you are going to do and telling them what you're not going to do, as you say, you are really explicitly inviting them to trust you. That there is no way, if you are going to have to slash your prices or your fee rates to try and win some business next year, that you're going to be able to provide the same level of service that you would have done otherwise. So be honest about it and say, yeah, we've got a cut price fee deal if you want that. If the most important thing to you as vendor is the fee rate, then we've got a fee rate that's down here, and that's great, go for it. But be very clear that we will not be able to do this, and this. And if one of our competitors is coming in and saying they're going to do all those things for that cut price fee, then wonder if that's going to necessarily be the case, because any business next year that is trying to do a cut price deal is going to struggle. Pardon?
That is really critical, that point about what it allows you to do as well, is to educate the consumer, the customer, about your competitor without it being seen like you're having just a pop because they are a competitor. If you've got it in your own kit bag, you can be incredibly honest about it and explain the reasoning as why that might not be right for you, but based on facts rather than emotion.
Yeah, exactly that. And you are, and again, so much of our industry and most industries is based around trust. You know, people buy people and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of that is around integrity and about, you know, kind of authenticity as well. And people are amazing when you're honest with them. And if you give them the facts, then people make informed decisions and generally come around to the most sensible way of doing things. Incredible.
Although I've told them that I'm honest.
Oh, what's so funny? Sorry, I missed that.
I said, well, I've told them that I've been honest. You know, that's quite powerful.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's right. And the other really fun thing is when you think about the gold package, so the super luxe package, right? You can throw all sorts in there and say, right, this is, you know, if you're an agent, this is our 4% package, right? So you say, we're going to charge you 4%, but we're going to do everything. We will, you know, literally kind of polish the floors as we go around. You know, we'll make sure everything is as it should be. And that really kind of, it gets you thinking about your business again a bit as well, about what's possible. So, you know, if there is this kind of concierge hotline directly into you for that 4%, then that's great. You know, if you do the drone footage and you do the, you know, the kind of ornate brochures and all this sort of stuff, then you do that for extra money. Of course you will. And you'll be surprised as well. Somebody will take it and it'll be awesome. And you'll sit there go, wow, I didn't think we were going to be able to sell that, but you have.
And that's where your margin can come from often, isn't it, as well? If you get all that balance right, you not only can you sweep up the volume end with the light service, but you can get that kind of Pareto 80-20% where, the vast majority of, certainly maybe not revenue, but profit can come from the top end tier.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we really focus hard on is that kind of the silver one in the middle has got to be your profit engine as well. So you've got to make sure that the offset between these are the services we can provide, this is the cost, there is enough in there that is going to maintain your profit and keep pushing it through. Because, you know, again, the temptation, and look, I'm a salesperson myself, I totally get it to kind of throw it the kitchen sink at it and say, right, for that, you know, almost just to get the deal done, because I love, you know, you love signing the deals. You're throwing in more and more and more, and the customer's going, yeah, well, I'll have all of that for this tiny fee, and that's never gonna pay. And particularly, you know, if transactions do start to tail off next year, then you're going to have to make sure every single one of them washes its face. So yeah, I just being able to be honest and say, right, these are the 5 things that we do for our silver on top of the bronze, and being able to be honest about that and sticking to it is really important as we enter what I think is going to be a quite challenging period.
Okay, cheers for that. And on the flip side of the coin, from a supplier's point of view, what can they be doing with their products and solutions to make them more attractive to agents?
Yeah, I think it's a very similar thing. You know, I think that if you are able to go out and offer to agents a kind of gold, silver, bronze potential package, then that again gives agents permission to look at you and to decide for themselves what level they want to engage with you at, aside from just having this all or nothing. Agents are going to be, as we've discussed, facing some different challenges next year, and if I'm, you know, as a supplier to the industry, I know that. I'm sorry. What you're not going to know necessarily is where they're at. You know, are they actually making a lot of money in this particular environment? Are they making some? Are they making none? How big is their pain? If you just go in and say, right, we're going to charge you, you know, 300, 400 quid a month, and use the dread phrases I know, I'm sure you've used it, I certainly have. All it takes is just one more instruction and it pays for itself, which is guaranteed to wind up every single estate agent in the world instantly.
Yeah. I'm taking it. I'm reinventing it. Oh, yeah. It's not so much the statements that is the problem. It's the fact that in the past people just haven't been able to back it up. But the problem with that, suppliers, you'll know yourself, is that actually what that leaves them doing is dancing around, trying to avoid having the ROI conversation. So actually, although it does sound trite, cheesy, everything else, we need to come up with a new way of displaying that. Otherwise, how are we ever able to prove we're worth it?
That's right, and I think that, you know, whenever it's been a conversation piece with agents for me, it's been around, well, I would have got that instruction anyway. Or how can you prove that that incremental instruction came through as a result of specifically what you do? And that's, as you said, that ROI is important to be able to talk about and to prove. But it is phenomenally hard because this transaction is so large, right? This is the biggest transaction that consumers make in their lives. It doesn't entirely depend on the advertising smarts of the agent, or indeed the supplier to that agent. So you have to be very, very specific and have a really strong identity and a strong conversation. This is where the marketing comes in order to really penetrate that consciousness and be able to justify why this particular fee is there. And that's why what we talk about is, right, is there a gold, silver, bronze that we can put together that is going to be able to deliver something? You can have that taste for bronze, and then you can develop into the silver and develop into the gold as well, because you're engaging with that customer. You're able to prove to that agent that you are genuine, and that your offering is what it says it's going to be. So yes, I think it's for a lot of suppliers. I'm certain there's going to be some concerns about how they face into the wind of 2021, but I think having the maximum number of different products is important, and also having that marketing and that sales together, I think is going to be absolutely critical to set them apart.
And just touching on marketing, what's the most effective type of marketing you're seeing out there? And feel free to reference the actual companies if you want to.
Well, there's this site called Kerfuffle. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's amazing. So no, I think that's it's things like this, right? So genuinely having the ability to have conversations like this on platforms that people are paying attention to, being able to then the whole idea of repurposing. Okay, this is the thing that I'm absolutely focused on is actually how can we're going to record this. Obviously, it's out there live. There are people watching it. But then once it's recorded, then we will be slicing it up and kind of releasing various bits of it to kind of tease our messaging again. And I think that's really what's resonated for so many businesses we've worked with, is just this idea that you don't have to have one particular advert out on Twitter and then one advert out on Facebook and then one on LinkedIn, and have all this hard work around marketing. I think if you're smart enough, you can actually have one hour-long interview like this or conversation like this, and then you can make that work. You can sweat that asset so hard that it doesn't that it's not too onerous to drop these across different media and different channels, and actually make sure that the same authenticity, the same conversation, the same beliefs, and the same reason you are being here is then evident to whichever audience it splashes on as you drop it out.
Thank you. And obviously the bedfellow to marketing is sales, and you've been the sales director, as you spoke about, at some very large organizations. How do you perceive that agents and suppliers are failing at the sales side of things at the moment?
I think it's a great question. I think that one of the real challenges that I observe is that it's almost that race to the end, so that there is this kind of like, just get the deal done, and no real sort of curiosity about how that deal came together. For us, curiosity, and a kind of relentless curiosity is really important. You've got to be intrigued by how come that deal actually happened. And it's those steps, it's that funnel. So how did the lead come in the top? What were the steps that they went through in order to achieve success? And then how do you replicate that? Because it's wonderful doing the deal, and everybody loves that signature and the cash coming in. But that's one of them. You have to have that kind of desire to replicate that and then to scale that. And that to me is the challenge in sales, almost across the board, and certainly not just in the property market, is that understanding of sales process. So actually, what is it that makes leads come in at the top, which is the marketing piece, and then how do I process those and make sure that my funnel is as wide as possible all the way through?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? So we, considering the dopamine hit you get when you get obviously a completed sale, it is interesting that we spend so long actually at the negative end, concentrating on why we lost business, getting very forensic with why did we lose that deal, and actually we don't apply the same acumen to one business, do we? We just put that down to natural talent and we move on, rather than really breaking down what were the ingredients of that deal that we did well and could have done better.
Absolutely. And I think that's such an important point. There is this tendency, and it's amazing. Wow, if it wasn't for us, then this thing wouldn't be happening, and so on and so forth. But the reality of it is that there are so many other circumstances, that happy circumstances that serendipitously came to pass, that brought us to this point, and we are a key part of it, of course. But it's those other factors that you need to try and replicate so that you can then shine and do your thing. And that's the thing that we obsess about here, is actually what are the other factors that have come to play, and removing the emotion and the ego, frankly, from it, and saying, all right, yeah, of course, you're great at that, and that's good, we need to replicate you doing that, but actually what's the foundation? How do you get that sales process together so that all the other things are harmonizing, so that you're then able to go out and smash it home and get all the credit?
You had me right up until the point where you said I had to lose my ego, and then that was inevitably going to disappear.
I think one of the things.
Let me help your ego here. So we've got a testimonial from off the site, from Sarah Turner from Bloom People Limited, just saying here, Mal invested time in getting to know my business and understanding where I most needed his advice and support. He's helped by simplifying things and provided me with a structure and plan for the future. So that's a great shout out there. Thank you for that. And we'll post that. And Sarah posting it on the website. And it sounds like you've got a bit of a fan even here at Kerfuffle Towers. Fam says Mal not only knows his stuff, he's a lovely guy. So there you go. You've got the lovely guy on.
Look, I think that it's one of those things about, right, you spend a lot of time in business, and everybody does, working really hard. And that again is why I do what I do, why we do what we do, is it's finding those people for whom that cause is everything, and helping them along the way and structure it. And again, it's the ideas aren't ours. The structure is, and the kind of execution side of it is, but the ideas are coming from people who, what really kind of gets me excited at the moment as well is, yes, obviously the pandemic has been terrible for so many reasons, and there's tragedy all the way through it as well. But for those that actually have sat there, perhaps in lockdown, perhaps in furlough, or perhaps tragically having lost their jobs, they would have been sitting there with this idea, right, gestating and thinking, I wonder if we can get this off the ground, or to do that. And those are the people we really want to reach, and we want to kind of catch and say, look, actually, if it's a real calling for you, and if it's something you really believe in, and that problem is big enough, then that's what we're here to do. We're here to bring that spark and that idea and that and that determination, and harness it with a process and a system that can actually help it come into being, and that's what gets us out of bed in the morning.
Cool. Mal, I ask many impossible things on this show, so I'm going to ask you to be Nostradamus now.
My God.
So talk to me about what kinds of products or services you expect to see from coming out from being released from estate agents in the future.
So for estate agents, I think we probably had this conversation way back in the dim and distant. One of the things that's always fascinated me about estate agency is, it's so lumpy, right? So people don't move house every month, and therefore your advertising can't capture everybody at any one particular time. But the idea that you as the idea of property consultancy rather than estate agency, I think is going to become more of a thing. I think that people are going to want to know who's the experts in their local area. And so, if you are an estate agent and you've got your patch, and perhaps those patches are going to increase as well in the relatively near future, as people do start to use more remote ways of approaching their target audience. But being in constant communication with people as they live in their homes, not just at the time they are looking to move in or out of their homes, I think is going to be the key to success in the coming years. I don't think agents are good enough at having that constant contact, at getting in touch with people on a monthly, quarterly basis, and saying, look, did you know this is what's happening in the market? You may not be ready to move right now. Get that, absolutely. But we're the property experts here, and we are people who know our stuff. And when that time does come, then get in touch. And so businesses like Data Loft is a wonderful business, and the guys there are amazing. But what they do is they provide this kind of regular reason to be in touch. And love working with those guys. But being able to prove your expertise as an agent using services like Data Loft, like the Spectre stuff, and various others as well, I think is really, really strong. So I think that's that ability for so that it's almost like a subscription service without the subscription, right? You just got to keep constantly talking to your customers. I think also quality is going to be the big thing, right? It's being able to, consumers are going to be less interested in it's dirt cheap because it's easy to sell, and they're going to be much more around quality. So I think that you're going to see a lot of things like, how do you present your property? We're working with Giraffe 360 right now, and they're kind of the way that you just stick a camera in the middle, and it's all very COVID brilliant as well, right? Because you stick a camera in the middle, it surveys the room, it will give you a floor plan, it will give you all those high def images, and it will also kind of knit them together for a virtual tour. So the ability to be able to do that in such high res and such quality is going to be a product that consumers are going to really want to see from their agents as well, I think.
I always wonder whether, people like Giraffe and Matterport, whether secretly they're just praying for Bojo to send us back into a full lockdown.
Lucas isn't, I promise. But I think obviously that there have been some big winners and some out of the situation, but almost that they were. I always think that luck is the meeting of preparation and opportunity, right? That's my definition of luck. If you're prepared enough and the opportunity arises, then boom, that's when good things happen. So I think that those guys have been preparing for a long time, and an opportunity is here.
And the flip side of that, again, with the kind of the prop tech you spoke about, Giraffe, do you see what do you perceive as being the next thing on the horizon for estate agents from the prop tech world?
I think that the collaboration is going to be the big thing, right? So I, the competition in our industry, is so fierce, and there are agents that you and I know who sit in their offices watching the guys over the road go out and go off to an instruction, trying to work out where the hell they're going, and and there is that kind of not quite Wild West town where everybody's just kind of waiting to draw their weapons. I think that's going to have to change. And I think there's going to need to be a lot more collaborative endeavor in order to service communities now. The days of just kind of everybody's kneecapping each other in order to get deals done, I think has got to go. And I'm fascinated by, so we're working with Agent Hub, with the guys there as an MLS, so a multi-listing service, and also Open Bricks, I know, are doing a similar thing as well, just to kind of keep it kind of even. But what I see in Agent Hub and the MLS that they're providing is just this idea of, look, it's hard enough out there, right? It is there is, and what the States proves is that you work together, there is more money out there for you to share around. And I think that this is a kind of obsession of ours, is if everybody works together, works a bit harder as an industry to put us in a good light out there in the consumer world, then people will be willing to pay more, and then there's more to share. So I do think that share collaborations, things such as Agent Hub and others are going to come to the fore more, and certainly going to be things that agents are willing to experiment with a bit more, I think, as in next year. So it's going to be far more collaborative.
I'm fascinated by the whole MLS thing. Clearly down in London, MLS to a degree with, half common, long res works,
Yes.
very, very effectively. So if I was playing devil's advocate, though, why did it not work with something? Because at one stage, I think there was over 500 offices, in the team organization, weren't there, genuinely operating, as far as I could see it, a true MLS service. Why did it work out, do you think?
So I will point the finger firmly at technology. I think that actually, you know, when it becomes harder to transmit these leads or these kind of introductions, referrals, and to then track them back so you can get the money done, I think that's a problem. You look at like the Guild, you look at RAN, Relocation Agent Network. You know, they have functioning referrals. And you know, things work. So I think that, you know, on a wider basis, there is going to be a lot more opportunity for agents to work together, and for that technology to fit together more effectively. And I think that is going to be the real differentiator here. The Agent Hub, for example, they use the Salesforce, you know, so that they actually have created a CRM based on Salesforce, which again I think is going to be another fascinating feature going forward. Is how do those systems integrate with each other? How do you get your zero? You know, if you're using a zero accounting package, you're using MailChimp to distribute, you know, some emails and things like that, or using Briefly Market or whatever. You know, how do you get all those things talking to each other? Historically speaking, and with no disrespect at all to Repeat into your history, I think those CRMs have controlled how effective a lot of agents can be. You know, because they getting that data out into the wider world of which properties they're willing to sell, the viewings and so on, has been a real problem. And I've worked with numerous PropTech businesses, and some of them have almost gone pop because the CRMs charge them through the nose for the privilege of getting access to their own data to the agents. So I think that's going to be a really fascinating sector to watch, as well as how, you know, with those Salesforce CRMs and others with Agent Hub, whether that's going to be something that you can
I joked about it at the beginning with Mojo doing the Caesar up and down, but genuinely that has been how CRMs, either intentionally wanting world domination or actually an inability to integrate with the many companies, have been perceived, haven't they? I think you're right. I think this is one of the biggest trends we are witnessing at the moment. It should be a tremendously exciting outlook. It might not be happening still quick enough, but actually pretty much everybody is coming round to the way of thinking. And in fact, actually, a bit Candyman style there. Jez Lee from Agent OS, formerly Let MC, of course, were one of the first companies to really start pushing this open approach, wasn't it? Mimicking the Apple Store and everything else there. That, you know, this data was the agent's own to control to a large degree, and they shouldn't have to be restricted to preferred suppliers by the CRMs.
Absolutely, and I remember talking to Glyn Trott and to Jez about, you know, when they were looking at Agent OS, and that, you know, that again was kind of where we needed to be, right, as an industry, which is where this data is free flowing. You know, obviously Repeat with their foundations, you know, that kind of idea as well that's recently come to pass, I think is a great start. But I wonder, you know, again, there's some hoops to jump through to get through some of those. But yeah, those that are thinking about collaboration, about integration, are much more likely, in my view, to see 2021 out in some style, because I do think that's the key to next year, is not being this kind of, it's mine, I'm going to keep hold of it, and I don't want to share it. It's going to be, look, let's let the data out, let the information out, let's integrate where we can, and then it's just going to be down to my skills, right? My business skills, my product, my marketing, my sales. That's going to make the difference, and the integration side and the other stuff is going to take care of itself.
Perfect. And whilst we're talking about industry greats, here we are, Robert May, loving the Walter White look, Simon. I prefer to think of it, Robert, it's a bit more of a chubby Ming the Merciless is the look I'm going for at the moment. So thank you. Keep the suggestion.
I'm not going to say you're nailing it.
Mal, we're coming to the end, and we could go on for hours, and we will do a follow-up show coming up with it. But let's whistle through a few of the questions I've got here. If you had to split up the secret to business growth in one word, what would it be? Nice, simple one.
Focus, I think, is going to be my word. You have to know what you're here to do. And what market you're here to serve, and you need to focus on that to the exclusion of all the other nonsense that goes on around you.
Great. That explains why I've failed in so many places. What's, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
So I was lucky enough to work with a guy called Simon Baker, who came in from REA Group. He basically sent me the right move of Australia. Amazing guy, genuinely genius. I think two things that he said to me that stuck, and I use liberally and probably don't quote him enough or refer to enough. Don't let perfection get in the way of better. Yeah, all right, brilliant. Because that is a real problem for so many entrepreneurs. Is I'm not going to release it because it's not perfect. No, you just get it out there quick as you can and learn. So don't let perfection get in the way of better. And that was one of his kind of key kind of statements. And there was another one that I just tried to remember, but I can't. But yes, that one will be for now. I might come back to it.
They're instantly forgettable if they can't anyway. So
well, yeah, quite exactly. I can't live in that way.
and what are you most proud of in business? What are you most proud of your achievements?
Look, I've been so lucky to be involved with so many great businesses. Obviously, Zoopla was a kind of highlight in terms of what we achieved there from nothing to becoming a really strong number two and to helping that to come to life. Growtion, again, this I think probably right now what I'm most proud of is this business and the ability to be able to go out and share this kind of process and this knowledge with untold SME businesses and help them to achieve what their goals are. So I think that's probably
excellent. Well, that's great to hear. And obviously, yours truly accepted. Who's your hero?
That was going to be my answer. So I think that when I spend a lot more time now kind of reading and listening and learning about business. And one guy that I find myself reading and listening to a lot is a guy called Ryan Holiday. Now, he was the marketing director at a business called American Apparel, but more than that, he's written books like Ego is the Enemy, Stillness is the Key, The Obstacle is the Way was the one that kind of really got me into it. So he's a philosopher, a lot of what he writes about, and a stoic philosopher as well in general. So I think he's probably had a big influence on what I've been doing, particularly recently. So Ryan Holiday, I check out a number of his books. The Obstacle is the Way is the one that I think is brilliant, which is basically if you see a path with an obstacle in the way and then an easy one, go for the obstacle because the easy one is really not going to end up being easy. All right, so The Obstacle is the Way is a really good book. I'd highly recommend it.
Well, I haven't come across him actually. So obviously, since I've had kids, best bit of advice one of my friends when just before we had them was just do all your reading now because you're never going to read another book once they're born.
Also sleeping because that's gone as well, right?
I think you mentioned if it wasn't for Audible, I'd literally be a complete peasant these days. But I will
Absolutely.
get them. I'll get them onto my book list now. Matt, you've been really kind as well for Kerfuffle, our Kerfuffle members. You've got a great offer out there for those people who want to get to know more about Growtion. Could you just elaborate a bit while I pop it up on the screen?
Yeah, listen. So what usually costs £95 for a 50-minute consultation with one of the consultants here. We're giving that away to Kerfuffle members for free. So if you want a 50-minute high energy, really focused kind of download about what your business is like, get in touch with us via the Kerfuffle site. We will happily chat with you about your business, see if we can give you some growth execution tips really quickly to help your business get set up for next year.
That's absolutely fantastic, man. Thank you for doing that and thinking of our guys over here. I can't obviously encourage everybody to do it. We've sat on many different forums. I know what you've accumulated over the years is absolutely fantastic and a very different angle as well for many of the people out there. So yeah, do go have a look at obviously Mal's 5-star ratings on his landing page out there, and I think you can actually get into his diary directly from there if I'm not mistaken. Sure. So I think that's great, Mal. Thank you for that. We've gone through a tremendous amount there, and I'd love to hear from you over the coming months, obviously, as you can give us further advice. Yeah,
be delighted to, mate. And listen, thanks. Thanks for what you're doing. Obviously, love Kerfuffle, love everything you've managed to create over recent times. And as an SME business owner yourself, I look on excited by where you guys are going as well. So yeah,
everyone loves Kerfuffle.
Sure do. Sure do. I'm looking forward to your latest line in fashion, which I saw you debuting on Twitter yesterday.
My latest crime against fashion. Yeah, well, it won't be long. Okay, matey. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for taking part. Cheers.